Georgia football players are set to begin voluntary offseason workouts this Monday, June 8th. And yes, this is a pretty big deal, given that only a few months ago we didn't even know if we'd have a college football season for 2020. But now players are taking their first steps in getting their bodies right for the upcoming 2020 season. And in some cases, a number of these players made their way to campuses the first time as members of the Georgia football team. I'm talking about Georgia's 2020 signing class that brought in a number of talented players who expect to in some way help Georgia this upcoming season. But for most of these guys, their contributions to the Georgia football team will come in 2021, 2022, and even 2023. But if Georgia's going to accomplish some of its goals, i.e. winning the SEC championship and getting back to the college football playoff, and potentially even winning a national title, it's going to need valuable contributions from some of these freshmen. A year ago, we saw George Pickens lead the team in receiving, while Nakobe Dean, Trayvon Walker, and Nolan Smith all played big roles on that Georgia defense. The Bulldogs are going to need some of those same contributions, almost literally, with this 2020 class. If there's one thing Georgia needs from this 2020 recruiting class, it is for its playmakers to show up early. Georgia signed 5 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and a tight end in Darnell Washington, who happens to be a 5-star prospect. 3 of those wide receivers, Arian Smith, Jermaine Burton, and Marcus Rosemy, were all top 100 players, along with 4-star running back Kendall Milton as well, who actually got to work out with the team earlier as an early enrollee. The Bulldogs need these guys to come through because right now on offense, that's a very big question. Georgia has to replace DeAndre Swift and Brian Harrion, and outside of Pickens, there's not really a known quantity at wide receiver. Dominic Blaylock could be a very nice player, but he's coming off an ACL injury. That's why it's going to need, specifically at that wide receiver spot, something out of the likes of Marcus Rosemy, Jermaine Burton, Justin Robinson, Ladd McConkey, and Arian Smith. And if Georgia gets something out of 5-star tight end Darnell Washington as well, that could be a big boost. But the bottom line is the thing Georgia needs most from these 2020 signees is for a few, not all of them, but a few of these playmakers to come up and make big plays, much like Pickens and Blaylock did a season ago. This class is obviously dominated on the offensive side of the ball, with 7 of the signees coming on the offensive line. But Georgia doesn't exactly need all of these signees to be breakout players on the offensive line right away. Georgia has good depth and some known options, for the most part, on the interior of the line. If there's one thing that you maybe want to see from this Georgia offensive line haul, it's that Broderick Jones emerges as something this year. He doesn't necessarily need to be the starter at left tackle or right tackle like Andrew Thomas was back in 2017. But if he follows sort of a Jamari Sawyer path and gets better as the season goes on and moves into a bigger role come those huge November contests for Georgia, I think it's going to be a very good sign for what the rest of this offensive line could do, especially under new direction from Matt Luke. Defensively, it's not as heavy as a class as it has been in years past. They only signed 1 linebacker, Mikael Sherman, while also bringing in 3 defensive linemen as well. I think if there's one thing you need from this defensive side of the crew, it's for a defensive line presence to not become a star or be the guy like Jordan Davis or Trayvon Walker have the potential to be for this upcoming season. But they need someone to play a role and fill some of the void left behind by the likes of Tyler Clark from a year ago. And who better to do that than Jalen Carter, a guy who says he's already compared himself to Tyler Clark. Carter was a 5-star defensive tackle signee, and based off the way he looked at the Under Armour All-American game, it was very easy to see why. Much like Walker last year, Georgia doesn't need him to rack up sacks and become a dominating presence right away. But it is going to need something from him given the losses that they had on the defensive side of the ball. As for the defensive backfield, we know Kirby Smart is always going to want to play the best available players. That probably means Keely Ringo is going to see some snaps. But given what Georgia has at the cornerback position, those needs aren't necessarily as dire as what Georgia would need from a guy like Carter, Warren Brinson, or Nazir Stackhouse from up front. This signing class obviously comes in with a lot of hype, given it was the number 1 ranked class in the country. But that 2018 class was ranked number 1, and to this point in their careers, they haven't exactly lived up to that hype. If anything, you'd probably say the 2019 class was better than that 2018 class based off what we saw a season ago and what they could potentially do this season. A lot of eyes will be on the likes of Milton, Burton, Washington, and the host of other freshmen that are finally now officially Georgia Bulldogs. But the Bulldogs are going to need something from these guys this first year, and if they can deliver on that, that's going to go a long way in answering a lot of the questions about this Georgia football team and potentially let people know if this team is to be taken seriously as a national title contender. For Dog Nation, I'm Connor Riley.
For more Dog Nation videos, check out youtube.com/DogNation.